I had to tell the waiter twice she wasn't coming before he finally stopped hovering. He kept looking over my shoulder like maybe she'd walk in late, hair wind blown, all flustered and apologetic. But I already knew. You can feel it in your chest when a ritual dies. I sat there anyway. At the table she always said was her dream date spot, dim lighting, tucked in the corner, right next to the window where she once joked she'd say yes if I ever proposed again. 2 candles flickered between untouched silverware. Her wine glass stayed empty. Mine didn't. I ordered the same thing we always did, eggplant rollatini for her, ribeye for me. I even told them to split the tiramisu, like always. Some pathetic reflex of hope, I guess. When the waiter finally cleared the other plate, untouched and still steaming, he gave me that look. You know the one. The "you poor bastard" look. I just smiled and asked for the check. The text had come earlier. Last-minute client dinner. I'm so sorry. Love you. The "love you" felt robotic, like when a stranger ends an email with "best." She didn't even say happy birthday. Not once. Outside, the night felt colder than it should have been for April. I was slipping into my coat when my phone buzzed again. Not her this time, Amex. A notification popped up for a charge on our shared travel card. I only keep that one open because it earns triple miles on hotels. My name's on it, but she books most of our trips with it. Usually legit, weekend getaways, work travel, boring adult stuff. But this time, a suite. Suite 512. Downtown. Less than 5 miles from the restaurant. And the name on the reservation wasn't hers. It was Gregory Vaughn. I hadn't heard that name in months. But I remembered the way she used to say it at those holiday events, when she thought I wasn't listening. The way her voice dipped when she said, "Greg, can you hand me that?" Like every vowel was a favor. He was a client of hers once. Big firm, high-profile merger. Divorced. Smooth talker. Slipped me his card once and said, "If you ever want to try the single life, I've got a boat and 2 dogs that don't argue." I'd laughed, but now my jaw locked as I stared at that suite number. 512, not a standard room. A suite. Champagne and robes and mirrored ceilings kind of suite. I got into my car, but didn't drive home. Just sat there in the lot, headlights off, phone in hand. I stared at the photo of her I had saved. Our last trip to Santa Fe, wind tugging at her scarf, her eyes squinting into the sun. I wondered when that version of her died. Maybe she didn't die. Maybe she just evolved into something shinier, hungrier. My thumb hovered over her contact for a full minute. I didn't call. What was I supposed to say? "Hey honey, happy birthday to me. Are you enjoying your champagne-soaked adultery?" No. I needed to see it. Not to confront her. Just to know I wasn't going crazy. So I drove. The hotel wasn't even discreet. One of those rooftop pool types with a glowing red sign and valet guys who pretend they're too busy to notice infidelity arriving in black SUVs. I didn't park close. I slid into a coffee shop across the street and ordered a bitter espresso I didn't need. The barista tried to make small talk. I nodded and looked busy, but I kept my eyes on the revolving glass door. 10 minutes later, I saw them. She was in the green dress. The one I got her for this night. Said it matched her eyes. Said it would go perfect with the gold earrings she rarely wore. That dress wasn't meant to be peeled off in some hotel suite with a man who wasn't her husband. They stepped off the elevator laughing, hand in hand, like teenagers on prom night. I could have gotten out, walked across the street, made a scene. Instead, I took a photo. Just one. Enough to remind myself I wasn't paranoid. Enough to say, later, I didn't imagine this. Then I sent the text. Send my regards to the man in suite 512. That's all. And if you're still listening, do me a favor and tap that subscribe button. Most of you hear these stories without ever hitting it, but for the people behind this channel, it really does keep us going. Anyway, 15 minutes later, the tires screamed into our driveway. And that's when the real story began. I didn't go home right away. I circled the block 3 times before pulling into the side alley next to the hotel. There was a loading zone with no cameras, just enough shadow to park without attracting attention. From there, I had a perfect view of the lobby's glass walls and the elevator bank inside. I turned off the engine. No music, just the sound of my own breathing and the steady ticking of the dashboard clock. 10 minutes passed. A black-tie gala must have been wrapping up. Groups of men in tuxedos and women in dresses too expensive to walk in spilled out laughing, drunk on champagne and someone else's tab. I scanned the crowd until my eyes stopped, frozen, on a very familiar shape. She wasn't looking at her phone. She wasn't hurrying home to apologize. She was strolling, smiling, one hand in his, the other clutching the little clutch I bought her last year in Napa. Her head tilted back as he whispered something into her ear. Something funny, apparently. She laughed. God, that laugh. The same one she used on me when she wanted something. She was wearing the dress. Not just any dress. The dress. Deep green silk, slit up the leg. The one she'd left hanging on the bathroom door that morning with the tag still on. I thought she was planning to surprise me with it tonight. That's how stupid I was. She saved it for him. I watched them walk toward the elevator together. She pressed the button, then turned to him, brushed a piece of lint off his lapel, leaned in like she'd done it 1,000 times. It wasn't awkward or new. It was muscle memory. They stepped in. The doors closed. I didn't move. I just picked up my phone. There was no shaking, no anger. Just a precise kind of stillness that scared me. Like when the air gets heavy before a storm. I opened our text thread, still showing her last message. Last-minute client dinner. I'm so sorry. Love you. I typed back. Send my regards to the man in suite 512. Then I hit send. I watched the screen for 3 seconds before locking the phone. That was enough. No follow-up. No emoji. No fight. Just truth, delivered like a scalpel. She'd recognized the number. She'd recognized the message. And more than anything, she'd recognized that tone, my voice, but without its warmth. That was new. That was going to scare her more than yelling ever could. I didn't wait to see her reaction. Didn't wait to watch her come flying back out of the hotel in panic, or him trying to figure out why her mood suddenly snapped in half. That part didn't matter. I drove home, slow and deliberate. Stopped for gas I didn't need. Picked up milk just because the fridge was low. My hands never shook. That, more than anything, told me I'd already crossed some internal line. There's a moment in every man's life where something clicks, and it never unclicks. When the version of you that tolerated the lies quietly puts down the leash and walks away. I hit that point somewhere between the second turn around the block and watching her touch his chest like it belonged to her. The house was dark when I pulled in. Her car wasn't there, obviously. I parked in the garage, took my time locking the door, then walked inside. And then, I cleaned. I wiped the counters. Threw away the candles she bought for our romantic nights. Took her wine glasses down from the shelf and boxed them. Nothing violent. Just subtraction. Removing traces of fiction. I even turned down the bed in the guest room. Left a bottle of water on the nightstand. No note. She wasn't worth the ink. I checked my phone one last time before bed. 10 missed calls. 3 voicemails. I didn't listen to a single one. The last message? I'm coming home. Please just wait. I can explain. I didn't respond. Because by that point, I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was something much worse. I was awake. 15 minutes later, right on cue, I heard the screech of tires tearing into the driveway like a crime scene just got discovered. Headlights cut through the window blinds. Then nothing. Just the car, doors slamming shut with enough force to rattle the hallway pictures. She didn't knock. She didn't ease the door open with guilt softening her steps. No, she threw it open like the house was on fire, and only I could put it out. Still wearing the green dress, now wrinkled and crooked. Her heels weren't even on right. One strap dangling like she'd sprinted half a block to get here. Her makeup, once perfectly sculpted, had surrendered to tears and sweat. Mascara streaked down both cheeks like racing stripes. I didn't move. I sat on the armrest of the living room couch, a glass of water in my hand, TV on but muted. A cooking show. Something about braised short ribs. She stumbled in, clutching her phone like it might morph into a time machine if she held it tight enough. I can explain, she stammered, voice already cracked like glass hit by a hammer. It's not what you think. I took a sip. Is it suite 513 then? Her face twitched. You could almost hear her brain scrambling through excuses like flashcards. She stepped forward like she expected me to reach out, to hold her, to say please just tell me it meant nothing. But I didn't. I didn't flinch. I just stood, calm, measured. I walked to the hallway and pointed toward the guest room at the far end, past the laundry room, and the wall calendar still frozen on my birthday. That's where you'll be staying until you find somewhere else. She blinked, stunned like I'd spoken in a language she never learned. Wait, what? No, you don't understand, she said, following me now. It was just drinks. We were talking about a project. He's going through a hard time. Greg just... I held up a hand. I didn't ask, I said. And I don't want the rehearsal. Save it for someone who hasn't seen the trailer already. She tried to laugh, that nervous laugh she used when a joke flopped in public. You're being paranoid. Overreacting. You didn't see anything. You're assuming. I turned to her slowly, eyes level. I saw your hand in his. I saw you wearing the dress I bought you for tonight. I saw you smile like a woman who forgot she was married. She tried again. It was nothing. You know how clients are. Sometimes they get too comfortable, too friendly. I didn't want to make a scene. I cut her off. You made a scene the moment you booked a suite under his name. You made a scene the moment you stepped into that elevator like it was your new address. That one hit her. Her bottom lip trembled. She looked like a marionette whose strings had been cut mid-performance. She sat down on the bench by the stairs, cradling her head in her hands. "You're not even going to yell?" she whispered, as if my silence was the loudest betrayal of all. I leaned against the banister. "No. Yelling would imply I still believe we're in a fight that ends with forgiveness. We're not. We're in a process now. And that process ends with you not living here." Her shoulders collapsed. "I messed up," she said finally, voice small. "But we've been through worse. You forgave me when I wrecked the car, when I lied about the credit card. And you cashed every ounce of goodwill I gave you." I said. "Congratulations. The account's empty now." Silence stretched between us like a rubber band pulled too far. I could see the gears turning, calculating which line might still land, which emotional appeal might trigger the old version of me, the one who always gave in. But that version was gone, buried in the ashes of that dress, that dinner reservation, that photo of her stepping off the elevator like she was in a fairy tale where I didn't exist. Eventually, she stood. Her heels clicked down the hall like gunshots. She stopped in the doorway of the guest room. "So that's it. One mistake, and I'm erased." I didn't answer, because she already knew. She must have thought sleeping in the guest room would soften me, like enduring one night in exile would reset the chessboard. I heard her that morning, moving around too loudly in the kitchen, slamming cabinet doors just hard enough to sound like regret. She even made coffee. French press, the one I like. Set it on the counter like a peace offering, as if caffeine could bribe clarity. I didn't touch it. I got dressed like it was any other Tuesday, buttoned down, clean shave, watch wound precisely. I didn't say good morning. I didn't ask if she slept okay. I walked past her and grabbed my keys. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice hoarse, but trying to sound casual. "To run an errand." She blinked. "Should I wait for you?" That made me pause, just long enough to turn and give her the briefest glance. "Do what you want," I said. "Just don't move anything that isn't yours." The bank was mercifully quiet. Mid-morning lull. I sat down with a manager I'd dealt with for years. Angela, sharp as ever. She wore that neutral smile banker's perfect, but I could tell she knew. Maybe not the specifics, but the shift in a man's body language when something breaks that won't be repaired. "I'd like to remove an authorized user from the joint card," I said, sliding her name and ID across the desk. "And close these two accounts." Angela scanned them. "These are dormant. Haven't been touched in years." "I remember them," I said. "She doesn't." She nodded. "And you want to consolidate remaining balances?" "No," I said. "I want them emptied. Cut checks. Mark is closed." It wasn't about money. Not really. It was about drawing a line, not in the sand, but in the ledger. There's something final about removing access, like shutting off oxygen to a room someone thought they'd always control. Angela was quick, efficient. When she handed me the confirmation slips, she didn't say a word, just looked me in the eye with a professionalism that bordered on pity. I nodded once. No smile. When I got back home, the house smelled like garlic and butter. She was cooking, from scratch, not ordering takeout, not heating frozen lasagna, actually cooking, like the early days when she still tried to impress me. She turned around too fast when she heard the door. Eyes hopeful, hair pulled back, lipstick reapplied, like makeup could erase betrayal. "I made your favorite," she said. "Creamy mushroom risotto. And that pork loin with the crust you like." I walked to the sink and washed my hands, methodical, dried them, then walked to the stove. "You made this for Greg too?" I asked, eyeing the spread. Her face collapsed. "Stop. You stop," I said flatly. "Stop pretending this is salvageable. Stop dressing up guilt and calling it effort." "I made a mistake," she said. "A one-time mistake." I picked up a plate, served myself a portion, sat at the table across from her, but didn't gesture for her to join me. "Then consider this your one-time consequence," I said. She didn't respond. I ate in silence, slowly, each bite chewed deliberately, not because I enjoyed it, but because I refused to let her take the space of my voice. She stood there, not moving, watching like I was some animal she used to own but didn't recognize anymore. Finally, she whispered, "You're being cruel." I looked up, met her eyes. "No," I said. "I'm being clear. Something you apparently stopped valuing." That night, she didn't knock on the bedroom door. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize again. She sat alone on the guest room floor. I heard the faint thump of her hitting the wall with her hand. Once, twice, but I didn't go to her. I folded my shirt, laid out clothes for the morning, cleaned my phone screen with a microfiber cloth. And for the first time in a long time, I realized how peaceful the house was when the truth wasn't being strangled by pretense. I booked the appointment under a different last name. Not hers, just mine. It was a Tuesday morning, gray skies, the kind of weather that makes everyone walk slower. I didn't. I moved like a man on a schedule, not out of rage, but purpose. The law office was in one of those old brick buildings downtown, the kind that looked like it used to be something nobler, a post office or a bank, before it became the place where marriages go to get disassembled piece by piece. The receptionist was polite, her eyes flicking to my ring once, but she didn't ask any questions. She offered coffee. I declined. The lawyer was sharp, mid-50s, the kind of man who'd seen too many good guys get taken to the cleaners by someone they once trusted with their passwords and medical history. He shook my hand, motioned for me to sit, and got straight to the point. So, divorce? I shook my head. Not yet. Separation of assets. Preemptive. He arched an eyebrow, then nodded. The legal firewall. Exactly. We went down the list. Joint accounts, savings, the condo, the lake house, 3 vehicles, 2 in her name but bought by me, and 1 corporate account tied to a consulting business I had before we married. That one was the real concern. She'd been casually dipping into it for years, labeling transactions as marketing help or travel expenses while pretending she understood what QuickBooks was. I let it slide because back then it felt like love. It wasn't love. It was entitlement wrapped in mascara and brunch selfies. I handed him a folder with documents she didn't know I kept, account statements, trust documents, property appraisals, even a copy of the prenuptial agreement she'd once called a silly formality over champagne and oysters. Silly my ass. That piece of paper was the only thing standing between me and financial amputation. The lawyer flipped through them silently, eyes narrowing slightly when he hit the trust clause. He looked up. You wrote this yourself? With my father, I said. He helped me structure it before he passed. Made sure it triggered on infidelity, not divorce. The man smiled, not cruelly, almost with reverence. You're not the first man to prepare for this, he said, pen tapping lightly on the clause. But you might be the first to do it without rage. There's no room for rage, I said. Rage is messy. I want clean. He nodded again and began drafting. Quiet. Efficient. No small talk. We set up asset separation notices to be delivered to her via certified mail, 1 for each item she'd touched without understanding it didn't belong to her. The house was technically in a land trust. The cars, leased under my LLC. The savings account she thought was our future trip fund had already been split, her name removed. The jewelry, gift receipts, and insurance documentation in my safe. She'd spent the last few years building a life on things I let her borrow. Now I was taking them back. The most satisfying part? There would be no shouting, no courtroom theatrics, no dramatic, you can't do this to me. Because I wasn't doing it to her. I was simply undoing what never should have been granted. By the time I got home, she was in the living room with a laptop open and a new tone in her voice. I booked a couples therapy session, she said, not looking up. Dr. Linwood. You liked him, remember? We saw him when you lost your mom. I took off my coat, hung it up neatly. I didn't lose her, I said. She died. Big difference. She blinked at that. I could tell it rattled her. My refusal to play along with softened language. Euphemisms were her favorite tool, but not mine anymore. I think we need to rebuild trust, she said carefully, rehearsed. I've been doing some reading about trauma and impulse control. I walked to the fridge, took out a bottle of sparkling water, poured exactly 1 glass. No need to rebuild something I've already condemned, I said. Condemned. Like a building, I said. Unsafe. Structurally unsound. She stood up too quickly, like panic was starting to bubble just beneath the calm exterior she thought she was faking well. Wait. You're not. What are you doing? I said I was sorry. I'm doing what you never expected me to, I replied, turning to face her. I'm treating this like a business decision. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Good. She still didn't know about the trust, or the clause, or the ticking legal timer under every asset she thought was hers by marriage. But she would. Soon. The lake house was never her favorite. Too quiet, she once said. Not enough nearby restaurants, spotty cell reception, and the woods make me nervous. But when friends came to visit, she'd pose on the deck like she built it with her bare hands, sipping wine and dropping little claims like, we wanted something rustic, or we love escaping here when life gets busy. We. She never once split the property taxes, never asked about maintenance costs, never held the wrench when the pipes froze or paid the contractor when the roof sagged. But she had no problem calling it ours. That was fine. I let her have the fantasy because I'd already built the reality. For years ago, after my father's funeral, I'd sat down with a trust attorney in a windowless office, went over every document with a precision I didn't yet know I'd need. We crafted a conditional living trust for the lake house. It held the deed, the insurance, the occupancy rights. But the key clause was 4C. In the event of infidelity by either party, as substantiated by credible evidence, occupancy and beneficiary privileges shall immediately revert to the grantor. She never read it. I offered once. She said, "You handle the boring stuff." So I did. Now, in the calm silence of post-betrayal, I pulled up the footage. The grainy video from across the street. Her stepping out of that hotel elevator, hand in hand with Gregory Vaughn. I added the receipt from the shared travel card, the timestamp charges from the bar and room service. Then her text message that night. Last-minute client dinner. I attached it all in an encrypted file and sent it to the trustee with a one-line note. Clause 4C, trigger. The next day, the reply came back before lunch. Formal. Brief. Per Clause 4C, occupancy and property rights shall revert to grantor effective immediately. Notice to be served via certified delivery. Occupant must vacate within 10 days or forfeit personal belongings stored on premises. I didn't tell her. I let the envelope do it. She found it the next morning. I heard the door creak open, her slippered feet pad down the hallway, then the telltale shuffle of a hand flipping through mail that wasn't hers to open anymore. Then a pause, the sharp tear of paper, silence, and then the scream, high-pitched, guttural, like something broke loose inside her ribcage. "What is this?" she shrieked, storming into the living room, letter clutched like a weapon. You filed something behind my back. Are you serious right now? The lake house. Are you kidding me?" I was sitting in the leather chair by the window, reading. I didn't look up. "You can't do this," she snapped, voice cracking. "That house is ours. We built memories there. You said it was our legacy." I turned the page in the book. Slowly, calmly. "I said a lot of things before you lied to me in silken heels." She stood there trembling, mouth open. "You didn't even tell me. You let me find out through a damn envelope, like some eviction notice." I met her eyes finally. "That's exactly what it is." Her face fell. She folded the paper, unfolding it again as if the language would change if she read it harder. "This can't be legal. You can't just strip me out of it with a trust." "It's not just a trust," I said, my voice flat. "It's foresight. The one thing you always mocked me for having." She sputtered. "You really prepared for me cheating on you?" I gave a half smile. "I prepared for the possibility. That's called risk management. You do remember your MBA, right?" She hurled the paper at me. It fluttered to the floor like an embarrassed flag. "That place was mine too," she shouted. "You let me believe. And you let me believe I had a wife who respected me," I said. "Looks like we both had some blind spots." She stormed off, mumbling something about her lawyer, which was cute, because I'd already blind copied my attorney on the trust execution. There were no loopholes, no appeals, just 10 days and a countdown she couldn't reset. I picked up the letter off the floor, folded it neatly, and placed it back on the counter where she could reread it later, after the rage burned out and reality set in. Physical space, emotional ground. Bit by bit, she was losing both, and I wasn't even raising my voice. She started dressing up again a few days after the letter, as if lip gloss and a power blazer could outpace the consequences piling behind her like a rising tide. She moved through the house like a guest now, careful not to touch too much, careful to pretend this was still just a rough patch. But I'd already converted the master bedroom into my space alone. She stayed in the guest room, walking barefoot like even the floorboards were judging her. Then came the knock on my home office door. She never knocked before. "Hey," she said softly, like the hallway might overhear. "I need to talk to you. It's work-related." I closed my laptop without looking at her. "Go on." She stepped inside, holding her phone like a live grenade. "There's been an issue with Greg. His name came up in the firm's internal audit. Apparently, there's a problem with the way our dinner was billed. It triggered something. Billing a hotel suite as a client expense will do that," I said dryly. She flinched. "It wasn't. Look, that's not the point. The point is, he's technically under another partner's portfolio. It's a client conflict, and HR is looking into it now. And his wife, she found out." I leaned back in my chair. "You surprised?" "Because I'm not." She tried to smile. It didn't land. They're trying to frame it like I poached a client. Like it was about money. But it wasn't, you know that. It was personal. Dumb, but personal. Dumb is generous, I said. Unprofessional, unethical, and colossally short-sighted are closer. She sighed and dropped into the armchair across from me. His wife hired a PR firm. She's threatening to leak internal firm communications, claims of favoritism, abuse of influence. I don't know how much they have, but there are emails, dinner reservations, calendar entries. And the dress, I added. Don't forget the birthday dress. She winced. They're asking questions. My boss wants a meeting. He says it looks like I created a liability, that I compromised a client. They think it reflects badly on the firm. I stared at her. It does, I said. That hung in the air like a final note in a requiem. She stood again, pacing. They're trying to build a case to put me on unpaid leave. Possibly fire me. If HR thinks I breached ethics. Which you did, I said. Her eyes flashed with something. Not anger, not shame. Just panic. I need your help. Just say we were separated when it happened. Say I was staying at the lake house. That it wasn't cheating, it was post-marital confusion. Something temporary. Please. I blinked slowly. You want me to rewrite the timeline so you don't lose your job? I just need a buffer, she said. Something to slow them down until I can fix this. By fix, you mean spin, I said. She said nothing. Her eyes shimmered with that watery shine that once meant something. Now it just looked like a performance with poor lighting. I stood, walked past her to the door, held it open. She didn't move. I supported your career, she said, voice trembling. Every step. You called my business cute at dinner parties. I bragged about you. You tolerated me, I said, because I was convenient, stable, predictable, and now you want me to lie for you. She opened her mouth to protest. I cut her off. This is your mess, I said, tone like steel under velvet. I'm not your cover story. She didn't leave immediately. She stood there like a statue built from regret and failed angles, waiting for some hint of softness. But I didn't give it. Eventually, she walked out. Quietly. No slam. No door shake. Just silence. Later that night, I heard her on the phone in the guest room, muffled sobbing, repeating phrases like, he won't help me, and they're making me the scapegoat. The same tone she used when a waiter got her order wrong, offended the world wouldn't adjust itself to her expectations. She still hadn't learned. And now, her job, her last shred of identity, was unraveling, thread by thread. And I wasn't lifting a single finger to stop it. I came home to the smell of roasted garlic and rosemary. Something bubbling in the oven, soft jazz playing from the Bluetooth speaker she hadn't touched in months. The lighting was dim, just enough to soften lines in faces and hide stains in souls. For a second, I thought I'd walked into a flashback. She stepped out from the kitchen, barefoot, holding 2 wine glasses. She was wearing the robe, thick, burgundy, the one she used to wear when we'd slow dance in the kitchen at midnight, back when silence between us meant comfort, not consequence. Her hair was pinned up loosely, just the way I used to like it. Messy, deliberate, like she rolled out of a dream with my name still on her lips. But it didn't land. None of it landed. Dinner's almost ready, she said softly, handing me a glass like peace had flavor. I made the roast. The one from our anniversary. You said it was the best thing you ever tasted. I didn't take the glass. I remember, I said. You overcooked it that night. But I lied. She gave a small, practiced laugh. Well, I didn't overcook it this time. I walked past her, set my keys down, removed my watch like this was any other evening. But it wasn't. This wasn't nostalgia. It was theater. I've been thinking, she said, following me, her voice lower now, gentle. I want to work on this. Us. I've been reading about relationship repair. We could go to counseling. Reset. I know what I did was wrong, but people make mistakes. No. I interrupted, turning to face her. They make decisions. You made yours. I'm making mine. She blinked, still smiling, but it twitched. I just want a chance to show you I'm serious, she said. I miss us. I miss you. I nodded slowly. That's good to hear. She exhaled in visible relief, like a hostage hearing sirens in the distance. Her hand grazed my arm. I didn't move, just reached into my briefcase and pulled out a folder. Manila, neatly labeled. Inside, 2 copies of the separation agreement. Dated. Signed. I laid them on the dinner table she tried to reclaim with a rosemary roast. She stared at them like they were in another language. What is this? It's not punishment, I said. It's relief. You already signed it. Her voice cracked. I signed it the moment I knew you were willing to wear that dress for him. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. You're just going to end it? Like that? After everything we've built. What did we build? I asked. A condo I paid for? A lake house you never liked? An image you curated with borrowed loyalty? Her mouth opened and closed. No sound. Just air and disbelief. She picked up the document. Read through the first page. Then the second. Her eyes darting. Her lips moving silently. Then, violently, she tore it in half. Once. Twice. 3 times until the pieces fell like confetti around her bare feet. This isn't fair, she shouted. You're not even trying. No, I said, stepping around the scraps. I stopped trying the moment I realized you were more upset about getting caught than what you did. She collapsed onto the nearest chair, hands over her face. The tears came, loud and dramatic, a performance of pain. I stood across from her, arms folded, unmoved. Watching her unravel used to hurt. Now it just confirmed what I already knew. Redemption was a role she didn't rehearse until she lost the audience. I don't want your tears, I said. I want your signature. And if you can't give it, I'll let the courts do it for you. She looked up, mascara already painting streaks down her cheeks. You really mean it, she whispered. You're really done. Not done, I said. Free. She didn't understand the difference. Not yet. But soon she would. It didn't happen all at once. Her collapse came in ripples, like a structure you know is doomed but still watch, out of morbid curiosity, to see which beam gives first. The first crack was Gregory's wife. Apparently, she'd been suspicious longer than I had. She'd hired a PI, old school, analog, the kind of guy who still prints photos on glossy paper and delivers manila envelopes like it's the Cold War. Turns out, my sweet 512 text wasn't the only one that blew something up that night. 2 days later, the client's wife posted a thinly veiled Instagram story, a quote about betrayal, a glass of wine, and a photo that, if you knew what to look for, showed my wife's robe in the background of their hotel suite mirror. Subtle, but loud enough for the right ears. The whispers at her firm began immediately. By Thursday, HR had temporarily relieved her of responsibilities pending investigation. That's corporate code for we're finding the cleanest way to fire you without triggering a lawsuit. She came home that afternoon looking like she'd walked through a storm, hair disheveled, lips tight, jaw clenched like she was chewing glass. They suspended me, she said, standing in the doorway like it still belonged to her. Do you even care? I was reading. I didn't look up. She dropped her purse to the floor. You could have said something. Defended me. They think I compromised the entire Vaughn account. You did, I said calmly. And now the PR team gets to bill twice. Once to fix his mess, once to bury yours. She didn't respond. Just stood there, waiting for some crack in my resolve that never came. Later that night, I emailed the property manager. The condo lease? In my name. Utilities? Also mine. She'd once laughed at how old-fashioned I was for keeping it that way. Said it made her feel like a 1950s housewife. Now it made her homeless. I sent the move-out notice as formally as possible. Standard 30 days, legal, unemotional. Attached the documentation, CC'd my lawyer, and filed it like I would any other task. I didn't leave a post-it. I didn't offer to help pack. The day she found it, she threw a mug across the kitchen. It shattered against the refrigerator, coffee splattering like a crime scene. I didn't even flinch. Just stared at the brown streak sliding down stainless steel and thought, appropriate. That weekend, she moved in with her sister. A guest room with pink curtains, no closet space, and a ceiling fan that clicked all night long. I know this because she called at 1:14 a.m. on a Sunday, sobbing. Said she couldn't sleep. Said the mattress hurt her back. Said she missed the way I used to rub her neck before bed. Left a voicemail that ended with, please, I don't want to be this person. I didn't respond. Word kept spreading. Gregory's firm dropped the account, citing ethical concerns. Internal memos started circulating, and while her name wasn't on them, everyone knew. In corporate America, scandal doesn't need confirmation. It just needs a whisper that sticks. She became that woman, the one who brought down a client, the one who slept with a married man and dragged the firm into PR hell. She tried to get ahead of it, called old colleagues, tried to spin the story. We were separated. It was complicated. It was never supposed to happen. But no one bought it. Because truth leaves a different kind of residue than fiction. You can't scrub the hotel registry. You can't uncork a bottle of room service Merlot. You can't unsee your own reflection in the elevator glass as you lean in for a kiss that was never meant to be captured. And me? I didn't parade. Didn't gloat. I just got quieter. Slept better. Worked longer. Laughed once. Out loud. When I realized I hadn't had to lie to a single person about anything in weeks. She unraveled in real time. From a wife with curated selfies and a six-figure job, to a guest room tenant with no address, no title, and no credibility. And the best part? I didn't raise my voice once. She came back one final time on a Sunday evening. I knew she would. There's always one last act. The grand finale where the villain tries to wear the mask of the victim, hoping the lighting's low enough no one notices. She parked crooked in the driveway like urgency would excuse disrespect. No knock this time. Just the jangle of the door opening and her voice floating down the hall. I'm not here to fight. I didn't move. I was sitting in the den, reading again, something about Roman emperors and the nature of decline. Fitting. She walked in slowly, cradling something in her arms like a child. A photo album. Old school. The black leather one with gold trim we bought after our 3rd anniversary. The one she insisted we fill with only the real moments. She set it on the coffee table like it was a hostage she hoped to trade for mercy. Her eyes were swollen. She hadn't slept, or if she had, it wasn't in a bed she called her own. I found this in storage, she said. Thought you'd want it. I said nothing. She opened it slowly, flipping past the first few pages. Her finger landed on a picture of us in Venice, sunlight bouncing off the canal, her hair caught in the wind, my hand on her lower back. It looked like love. It wasn't. You were my best friend, she said, voice breaking. Before everything. You made me feel safe. Like I didn't have to pretend. I looked at the photo for a second. Not for nostalgia. For irony. That smile of hers had been rehearsed. Perfectly timed. Like everything else. I lost everything, she whispered. My job. My friends. My name at the firm is poison. My sister's already hinting I should find somewhere else. I picked up the photo, slid it gently from the sleeve. Held it between my fingers. Then I handed it back to her. No, I said, calm as breath. You didn't lose anything. You threw it. I just stepped out of the way. She didn't speak. Her hand trembled as she took the photo. Like it burned. Like it weighed more now than it ever did on paper. I would have done anything to fix this, she said, the last thread of desperation showing. I would have forgiven you if the roles were reversed. I let out a quiet exhale. That's the difference. I don't trade in counterfeit grace. She sat down on the edge of the ottoman like maybe I'd soften. Like maybe proximity could rewind time. But there were no replays. Only aftermath. Her phone buzzed. She looked down and froze. Eyes locked on the screen like it was a verdict. I already knew. Termination. The firm had made it official. She was out. Her name erased from the company's site. Email deactivated. Career abruptly snuffed out like a flame deprived of oxygen. She didn't cry right away. It took a few seconds. Then the sob came sharp and helpless. Shoulders curled inward like she was trying to disappear into herself. I stood, walked into the kitchen, and pulled down a bottle of wine I'd been saving. Not for an anniversary. Not for some empty toast about new chapters. I poured a glass. Swirled it once. Took a sip. She was still sitting there when I returned, face buried in her hands. You know what's funny? I said, voice lighter than it had been in weeks. She looked up, red-eyed and silent. This is the first time I've laughed in a month, I said, smiling faintly. Not a laugh at her pain. A laugh at the absurdity of how long I played the fool. How long I bought the lie. How long I thought love meant giving someone all your passwords and none of your boundaries. She stood up slowly, hugging the photo album to her chest like it might stop the bleeding. I don't have anywhere else to go. You have everywhere, I said. Just not here. She paused in the doorway like she wanted to say something. Wanted to cry again, collapse, beg, twist, spin. I turned my back to her and raised the glass. She walked out. I never saw her again. The story ended the second she lied. I just let her finish writing it.